Hamas has accepted. The UN voted to pass the U.S.-backed ceasefire resolution. It has a three-phase plan. You may have heard of this before. I think it's slightly different from the thing that Biden had talked about. And I will point out where I think it's slightly different. It starts with an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages in exchange for Palestinians being held in Israeli prisons, the return of displaced Gazans to their homes to the extent that those homes exist, or at the very least, I think, into the sort of geographic locations, because I don't know what the latest numbers is, but it has to be close to 75% of like homes have been destroyed in Gaza, and the full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. The second phase calls for a permanent ceasefire with an agreement of both parties. And the third year phase would consist of a multi-year reconstruction plan for Gaza and a return of the remains of deceased hostages. However, the proposal says if the negotiations, and this is the part I think that is a little bit different from what Biden said and what was supposedly keeping the Israelis from signing on to it. If the negotiations take longer than 6 weeks for phase one, the ceasefire will still continue as long as negotiations continue, which means that after 6 weeks, theoretically, Israel could walk away from the table, or I guess theoretically Hamas could. But from the Israelis' perspective, this is one of the things they want. They could walk away from the table and the ceasefire would end. And I think that the idea here is, as Matt put before the show, you get the kid out of the pool and then maybe they don't want to go back in.
That's the idea.
That's the idea.
You can understand how that was a sticking point for Hamas, which has since maybe like February or March broadly agreed to a majority of the conditions in this framework that have remained relatively similar. But that major sticking point for months has been temporary versus permanent. This gives Israel the wiggle room to say maybe they'll go back in, which I would be extremely concerned about. But perhaps Biden's team is giving Hamas basically some sort of assurances behind the scenes.
Well, I don't know how much assurance they can give, but it is Hamas has signed off on this. And here is, now it's become sort of really explicit. As of yesterday, supposedly Hamas had not agreed to the ceasefire deal, which we saw mixed reporting on. But here is MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell attempting to clarify with Blinken yesterday that very question, and sort of pointing out that it doesn't feel like you're an honest broker between these two parties, because aside from the fact that you're funding all of this, you're not stating Israel's position regarding the ceasefire plan.
You say that everyone but Hamas has agreed to this. Benjamin Netanyahu has certainly said otherwise publicly. And the hostage families are saying, you should try everything if this fails. And it's quite possible it will fail, with him now toughening his position, more likely, being partners. If this fails, they want you to work through Qatar and deal with Hamas to get the Americans home. And we are reporting at NBC News that that is being discussed as a backup plan, if no other way to get a ceasefire, doing it without Israel agreeing to a ceasefire. Can you tell us about that? And also, if the war continues, won't the Palestinian death toll be unacceptable, as the National Security Advisor in Israel has said, to the end of the year, after such a horrific death toll in getting the hostages out militarily this weekend?
First, let me be very clear. Israel has accepted the proposal. In fact, they were critical in putting it forward.
I don't think
so. The only party. No, that is what the official position of the Israeli government, the Prime Minister. So the only party that has not accepted, the only party that's not said yes, is Hamas. That's who everyone's waiting on. That's who the Palestinians in Gaza are waiting on. It's who the Israelis are waiting on. It's who the hostages and the hostage families are waiting on. It's who the entire region and the entire world is waiting on. And so we'll see. Does Hamas want to end this conflict, end this war that it started or not. We'll find out. But it's clear that virtually the entire world has come together in support of the proposal. And the only open question is, will Hamas say yes?
I mean, this is just so...
It's insanity.
Make believe.
It's so make-believe, and I don't know, like who they think that this is working with. But now at least we have, you know, I mean, look here, but just put up this. I mean, so now we know that we can. Yeah, I want you to put up this this headline from Reuters, and I love how it says like Hamas says it accepts.
Right. I mean,
Like,
you
what
can't
do they gotta
trust
do?
them.
Like, what do they got to do? Normally, you'd say Hamas accepts UN-backed Gaza truce plan. I don't know why it doesn't say U.S. says it cites hopeful sign. But the bottom line is everybody's waiting on Israel.
It's odd because there's just a lot of contradictory tactics here, really all trying to avoid the number one thing that Biden doesn't want to do, which is withhold arms to Israel, which is what makes the most sense. It's all in keeping of like hugging Israel as close as possible, protecting them from being able to say that this was some sort of defeat, because we know that Hamas is increasing its attacks in the north and has started to recruit people, because so there's really a major failure here beyond the security failures on October 7th that the United States is trying to save Israel from in order to hope that it agrees to America's demands here. So they're trying to give them cover in the press, but it's been 9 months. Can we have some sort of reckoning with the fact that a guy like Benjamin Netanyahu is not somebody who responds to a hug? He's somebody who responds to like material threats. And the reality that we talked about yesterday, where Benny Gantz is leaving the war cabinet, means that Netanyahu is even more dependent on his far right coalition members, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, who are saying, we will literally push you out of power if you agree to a ceasefire deal. And that reality hasn't changed for the past few months. So it might be time to stop like hugging in different ways and just withhold arms to force your position. But they're trying to avoid that because of God knows why.
Sunk cost fallacy.
But if you're trying
or just ideology. I mean, who knows?
If you're trying to pressure them in the press, then why are you giving them the cover to say that it's their proposal at the same time? So you can't both give them the strategic victory and then also try to be putting the screws on Netanyahu. It doesn't make any sense from a messaging perspective.
Better invite him to talk in front of Congress.
I guess we'll get a better notion in the next 24 hours. I mean, it's pretty explicit. You're either signing on to the UN resolution or you're not. Then if everybody signed on to the UN resolution, let's implement it. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.